So for today's devlog, I'm just trying to implement some design principles that I've recently learned. So I'm a backend engineer and I'm not really used to creating design for the front end. So there's a couple of lessons here that I learned and I'm trying to implement how it would look like if I were to follow them. So this is a recording session from my coding session a while ago. So I'm not recording this real time. It's more just a playback of what I did. And then I'll just be adding some commentary to it. You can use TailGrid as a out of the box component for Figma. It gives you all the CSS components that you would use, and essentially it makes life a lot easier. And what I learned is that when you're using Figma, there's a rule that says you have like 12 columns that spaces out your site, and it's a good rule of thumb to follow. So before I was just putting things around, and if you can see here, there's no grid at all. And then this is my first time actually creating a 12 column grid. And then the idea is you put everything within those grid, and when you're putting components, you would make sure that they align. For example, there's if your text, say here in Nomad budget, takes 3 or 4 columns, it should essentially be equal. So you can, I'll show you later, but it gives you a good like a rough estimate of how things would look once you have those 12 column grid. And as a backend engineer, or maybe as a front end, because I'm full stack, it's not really a common knowledge for me. I don't know if for you guys, but so now I'm just trying to fit in all my components inside those 12 column grids. The reason why I'm doing this asynchronously is it's a bit hard to narrate and actually code at the same time. Maybe some people can actually do it much easier, but for me it's a bit tricky. So you see, I just added a column, and I trimmed the nav bar, and you can already see that it's a bit cleaner without the, what do you call this, the borders at the other end. It's clear now. And just a disclaimer as well, it's my first time, well, not first time, but I'm pretty new at working with Figma. And so if you can see, I'm googling a lot of code, like how do you set up things. And this is very interesting, the color wheel. And so when you're starting off designing a web application, the Canva has this color wheel tool that you can use. So essentially it gives you the complement of just maybe minimize myself a bit here, but you can see Canva gives you like a tool of what best color contrasts are. So for example, your main color is green, it will give you a suggestion of which colors to use. And now I'm just storing it in my Figma. Like here are the 3 primary colors that needs to be stored. And again, this is all recommended. So if you see analogous, it gives you 3 colors out of the, like what is the best complementary colors there are. So essentially it will dictate how your site would look like. Primary, secondary, and tertiary colors, I guess. So I'm trying to copy the thumbnail that I had from. So this site is actually a fully functional site, but I didn't use any design principles when I implemented the site. So I'm trying to revamp the site, how it would look like, and I guess like going through Figma first before actually implementing code. And this is a game changer, I would say. As an engineer before, I would try to do the design in code, and it takes a lot of like wasted time trying to implement the code immediately versus drawing it out in Figma and seeing how everything falls into place. So I definitely recommend like learning this skill of using Figma first. And it's not rocket science as well. It's fairly simple. A lot of drag and drop, but it gives you all the necessary tools and components to play around with. And for the engineers, I'm sure everyone's more used to like the designer giving them finished Figma files, and so we're rarely the ones making changes here. So definitely an underrated skill. So here I'm making use of, I think I'll post the link below about the 7 design principles, but I'm using, I think it's 4 or 5, like the white spaces. So we're taking advantage of the white spaces rather than always filling everything up. And so there's also the F and Z movement of the eyes, like where the user lands. So it's either you go F, like the user looks at it from F or Z, but here I'm opting for the eyes of the users to center on the middle. So that's why we have the grid, and then putting all the main stuff in the middle. I'm not sure, did it stop? Yeah, we're going to. I think it paused for a bit. Yep, there you go. So again, making use of the white spaces here. You can toggle the column displays, and then you can see how it would look like. So essentially, these are the top navigation bar. From the original design where we had a lot of green background, now it's very simplistic. And again, following all the design principles that I recently learned. I think it's looking much cleaner. So this is what I was saying, like we're all put, so the eyesight, if you can see, everything is centered in the middle. We don't want the users to like have their eyes go all around the screen. The good thing about Figma is you can automatically distribute items. So in probably the next, or maybe in a couple of videos, the devlog, I'll focus on how do you match fonts. So for now, I'm sticking with one because I haven't dived in too deep on what are the best way to match fonts. So there's also a science to it as well, like how you match different fonts together. So here I'm just trying to figure out, like, should I change color or the application name? Just weighing my options. giving it some thought, I guess. But yeah, I opted to just retain the original name. You see the 12 column grid here, it allows you to actually space it out, so you can see there's 3 columns on the left and then 3 columns on the right with nothing touching it, essentially on the main header. And then we can easily center like the bottom navigation as well. I'll post these links in the channel below, but I'm following like the movement here. So essentially the colors and the design tell you like where the users look. So the reason I'm creating frames per each stage is so I can essentially roll back to a previous step. I know this is probably not how other designers work, but as an engineer, it feels like this is how we would do in, say, GitHub, where you have several commits, and then I can easily roll back from a design point of view. I'll look up if this is the correct way of doing it, but for now I'm just creating frames per major commit, major change. So I'm at this point I'm weighing whether I want to have a balance of, so the balance is when you have something on the left side like some text, and then on the right side some big heavy as like picture, so you can it's a, I guess, like an unspoken balance, so to speak. So it's not a hard science essentially, but when you have a big logo on the right and then you have some text on the left, there's some balance there. So I'm trying to weigh whether to use everything on the center or if there's a balance between the design. And you'll be able, like, the reason why I have multiple frames is you can compare it as well, like which one is more, I guess, appealing to the eyes. Again, guys, check out this color wheel from Canva. It gives you like all the good color complements. So you can see like they suggest, like if you're trying to create a graph from those 3 colors, they also have something out of the box. Some inspiration here. This one is very appealing to me because there's like a big, you can see that the design principle here at play. They have a big text on the left and then you have a big graphic here. So we're trying to emulate how that sense in our application. And again, this is my first time following design principles, so I'm just recording, vlogging the lessons learned, and trying to get a globe that would look balanced on the other side. The good thing about when you get SVGs is it will allow you to scale those images without sacrificing quality. And then we're using, obviously now we're using the secondary color that we got from the color wheel. So it should play well with our primary and secondary color. So I guess like the suggestion here is when you're building an application, think of a primary color, and then everything else will be what are the complementary colors from that primary color. So if your primary color is green, just look up like what are the monochromatic, analogous, or there's different terms in the Canva color wheel, but you don't have to do you don't need to do the science yourself. So if you have one color, just look up like suggested color wheels, or if you don't like the tool that I'll post here. So we have this sort of balance here, I guess. Just testing out. Yeah, this is where a lot of the grid columns come into play. So I'm counting how many spaces does the left one takes up. So at here I can see it's 5, and then on the right side it's 5 as well. Yeah, because I wasn't recording this real time. I'm opting to write it on sticky notes, like what I wanted to say during that recording session. So I'm eating both 4, and if you remove the grid, like it looks much cleaner as well. Like if from the beginning, if you can see it, I can already see the improvement on my designing skills. And I feel like should have done this much earlier. So you have from the top, you have like everything centered. The user immediately sees the header, what you're trying them, what you want them to, what you want to emphasize. So that's the first rule. What's the emphasis? And now you have 2 options. Do you want to go center, emphasis, or balance? Do you want to optimize for eye movement or balance view? And I think I went with the balance view here. So from here, I'll create another frame and progress the design. The good thing about this is I can go back, and if I want to have like the center view, progress that design, I can always copy paste it. For some reason, my SVG is not propagating when I copy it as a new frame. So I had a couple of trial and error here. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure why I was copying the whole frame. It wasn't getting copy pasted on the other end. Yeah, I just opted to copy paste the whole thing. Yeah, not very intuitive. So putting back the grids again, columns, sorry. So one of the main parts of this application is, I guess, like I also wanted to keep like a YouTube video in the website itself. So essentially all the how to use the application. But I noticed like the thumbnail doesn't fit well because it's already, I should have like a better thumbnail, that way there's some contrast to the application itself. It's not obvious that it's a video. So that's why I was hesitating, like should I put it here or not. Like so I guess like a pro tip is when you're embedding a YouTube video in your application, don't use the home page as the thumbnails as well. So I'm looking for a better thumbnail to use. So this one looks interesting because this is a good thumbnail because it's more. I'll have a equivalent like picture of it for my application later on, but for now let's use this as a placeholder. It was a bit annoying because every time I resize the thumbnail, it would also move the picture within, so I couldn't get the sense of how it would actually look like. I think I opted for this one, and then at this point I wanted the nav bar to also, bottom nav bar to be at the middle, but every time I move the text, it will move the whole thing. And so we're opting for everything as the middle. So when you look at it, the view would essentially, it's like a diamond. You look at the top nav, and then you skim over like the text here on the left, and then the logo, and then and go back to the middle as the YouTube demo. It's something not commonly thought about as software engineers. Like, you don't think about how does the user's eyes go when you're implementing a design. And maybe to the UX designers and UI designers, this is second nature. But for me, it was something I didn't realize, because I was everything. You just know what good design looks like, but without knowing the underlying principles, it was a bit eye-opening, so to speak. Like, you just know what good looks like without knowing why it looks good. And now I'm doing a deep dive on why do they look good, and now it's like all those small things that you took for granted. Distant mode. Yeah, I spent a bit of time just trying to realign the bottom nav here. Losing battery. Yeah, at this point I was a bit crunched because my battery was running out and I didn't have a charger. So I think I won't, for this session, it's more just the first page. We'll go into the next session with, I guess, like the next page as well, but trying to play around the colors here. So using the secondary color doesn't feel right to have like a bottom nav colored without the top nav. But the good thing about playing with Figma is you can essentially get a sense of it without writing any code, right? So just playing around it, testing out the, what was it? Testing out the colors. I couldn't figure out like other colors here, so I needed a white color to contrast the secondary color here. Okay. Yeah, I think I didn't get too much finish here, but that's essentially it. And I'll add, I think at this point I'll add like a gray banner just as a placeholder. But I'll let you see where it ended, and then we'll continue on part 2 for the next bits. Yeah, I found a random currency here that I couldn't delete. if you can tell that I'm not proficient with Figma. Yeah, I didn't like the ending here. It's okay. It's much better than the first iteration, but we'll continue changing it in part 2. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed learning about design principles. And let me just see. Yeah, I have a minute left. Yeah, just playing around with the colors here. And I think I'll leave it there. Yeah, to be continued. Cool. Thank you. That's it for Devlog 1. Bye.